Welcome to a quick note, where we unravel mysteries and explore the unknown. In today's episode, we delve into the Red Plague mystery, a historical enigma that has captured imaginations for centuries. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more intriguing content, and let's embark on this journey together. For 3,000 years, a really bad sickness spread on Earth. If you caught this sickness, there was a 3 in 10 chance you wouldn't make it. So about 1 out of every 3 people who got sick ended up passing away. Those who lived through it had marks on their bodies that stuck with them forever. Their faces looked different, with big spots that never went away. Some folks even lost their eyesight and couldn't see anymore. It was a really tough time for a lot of people. Back in 1735, a terrible sickness hit Japan and wiped out 1/3 of the people there. In the 1500s, European settlers brought the same sickness to Mexico and America, and a whopping 90% of the native tribal population didn't make it. In 18th century Russia, every 7th child born died from this disease. It caused a lot of empires and civilizations from history to disappear. Experts think that each year, this epidemic killed around 5 million people. Over a century, it added up to a staggering 500 million deaths. That's 500 million people who lost their lives. Compared to this disease, the recent COVID-19 pandemic almost seems like a joke. People throughout history called it by many names like pox, the speckled monster, and the Red Plague. In India, they even called it Madalanya, believing it was a curse from the goddess, but the most common name for it was smallpox. In a surprising turn of events during the 1700s, when this disease wreaked havoc worldwide, there was a peculiar village in England. Strangely, the farmers in this village seemed to be immune to the sickness. It became a bit of a mystery, as if these farmers possessed some kind of superhuman ability that protected them from the terrible virus. Smallpox emerged in human populations thousands of years ago. Being highly contagious, it spread rapidly. Smallpox stands out as the most destructive and lethal illness in human history. Before vaccinations, it was among the deadliest diseases. The introduction of smallpox vaccination played a crucial role in wiping out smallpox from significant parts of the world. It truly was a monstrous threat. Smallpox emerged in human populations thousands of years ago. Being highly contagious, it spread rapidly. Smallpox stands out as the most destructive and lethal illness in human history. Before vaccinations, it was among the deadliest diseases. The introduction of smallpox vaccination played a crucial role in wiping out smallpox from significant parts of the world. It truly was a monstrous threat. When someone got infected, the initial symptoms resembled a common cold with coughing. However, things took a turn as rashes emerged all over the body, progressing into painful boils. These boils ended up covering the person's face and body, and it's really hard to describe how unpleasant it was. The unfortunate person typically succumbed to the illness 8-16 days after falling sick, experiencing headaches, vomiting, rashes, and fever throughout this agonizing period. As mentioned earlier, the death rate for this disease was 30%. In comparison, the death rate for COVID-19 is less than 1%. What made it even worse was that this disease affected children more frequently, and the death rate among children was even higher. The exact origin of the disease is unknown. However, it is believed that around 10,000 BC, when people first started practicing agriculture in Africa and began domesticating animals like cattle and poultry, humans came into regular contact with these animals. Orthopox viruses, which include smallpox, are typically found in mammals, so it is assumed that the disease originated there. Some scientists also speculate that it might have originated from rodents. The earliest evidence of this illness dates back to 1156 BC, when examining an ancient Egyptian mummy. The mummy, which was embalmed and laid to rest, displayed the same facial scarring characteristic of smallpox. Since its early discovery, no cure for this deadly disease has been found, and even in modern medicine, smallpox remains incurable. However, people learned about the concept of immunity. Those who survived the disease did not get infected again. Consequently, many doctors thought that one way to guard against this illness would be to expose individuals to a small amount of the virus before it could make them seriously sick. This would give them a mild form of the illness, but it wouldn't be fatal and they would be protected in the future. This practice is known as inoculation, believed to have originated in India or China. In the 18th century, a group of Brahmins called Tikadar carried out inoculation. They would collect scabs from the skin of people affected by the disease, which were hardened scar tissue caused by smallpox. These scabs were then used to pierce a healthy person's hand using an iron needle. Inoculation practices were first documented in China in the 11th century, where Buddhist monks in the mountainous regions of Tibet collected these scabs, turned them into powder, and blew the powder into the noses of healthy individuals. These methods eventually traveled from India and China to the Ottoman Empire, and eventually to Europe. However, a significant problem arose with the inoculation method. There was no assurance that the small amount of virus used to infect people wouldn't lead to their death. Unfortunately, there were no guarantees, and as a result, 1% to 2% of people died from the inoculation process. While this death rate was lower than the 30% death rate from natural smallpox infection, it was still a risk. Despite the risks, many people chose to undergo inoculation. Another issue was that those who had undergone inoculation were left with permanent scars. The third problem was its contagious nature. People who had undergone inoculation could inadvertently spread the virus to others around the world. In 18th century England, a mysterious event unfolded in the village of Gloucestershire. The farmers, cattle builders, and milkmaids who worked there seemed to be immune to smallpox. Intrigued, Dr. Edward Jenner decided to investigate in 1795. When he spoke with the agricultural workers, they mentioned that those who had contracted cowpox didn't get smallpox. Cowpox was a different disease, less deadly than smallpox. This led Jenner to wonder if getting cowpox could actually prevent smallpox. If true, it could be a straightforward way to avoid the more severe illness. To find out, he needed to conduct experiments and gather evidence. In May 1796, Sarah, a woman with cowpox, sought treatment from Dr. Edward Jenner. Seizing the opportunity to test his theory, Jenner extracted and saved pus from her boils. The question was, who would be the test subject? Jenner's gardener had an 8-year-old son named James, and Jenner intentionally pierced his hand, infecting him with cowpox. A few days later, the child developed a fever but managed to recover. 6 weeks later, Jenner intentionally infected the kid with smallpox by extracting smallpox scars. Today, such experiments on minors are not only morally unacceptable, but also illegal. However, back then there were no such morals or laws. Infecting a child with smallpox was highly risky, but fortunately, the child did not die. He had developed immunity to smallpox. This experiment not only showed that cowpox could prevent smallpox, but also demonstrated that cowpox could be intentionally spread from human to human. Dr. Jenner had achieved a groundbreaking feat. He had created the world's first vaccination, marking the advent of the first successful vaccine globally. The child he inoculated became the first person to receive a vaccine. Not only did Dr. Jenner pioneer this revolutionary concept, but he also coined the term vaccination. This term is derived from the Latin word vacca, meaning cow, reflecting the protection provided by cowpox. While initially associated with cowpox vaccines, the term vaccination has evolved to encompass any type of vaccine. Vaccination proved to be much safer than the earlier practice of inoculation. The risk of death, which was 1% 2% with inoculation, was significantly reduced, nearly to the point of non-existence, with cowpox vaccination. Today we have a comprehensive understanding of how this vaccination process works. Cowpox and smallpox are both caused by viruses from the orthopox family. When our immune system encounters cowpox, it learns to recognize similar viruses. If smallpox, for instance, infects us later on, our immune system can quickly detect it. The antibodies produced during the previous cowpox infection can then be deployed to defend against smallpox, increasing our chances of survival. Another virus from the orthopox family, monkeypox, has recently spread globally, and you may have heard about it. It's in the same family as smallpox, but fortunately, according to the World Health Organization, it is less severe, less contagious, and has a death rate of 3% 6%. Some research suggests that the smallpox vaccine is also 85% effective against monkeypox. However, it's undeniable that whenever a new disease emerges, it has a significant negative impact on our lives. You might assume that when Dr. Jenner shared his groundbreaking vaccination discovery with the world, everyone would have praised him for his remarkable achievement, considering the potential to save millions of lives. However, the reality was quite the opposite. Dr. Jenner faced a lot of criticism and was largely ridiculed. When he presented his findings to the Royal Society of London, they rejected his study. The president of the Royal Society even advised him to abandon his research. Despite these challenges, Dr. Jenner persevered. He conducted further research, gathered more data, and eventually published his book, Inquiry into the Causes and Effects of the Varioli Vaccinae. While many doctors and scientists were eventually convinced, winning over the public proved to be an enormous task. A number of religious institutions opposed vaccinations, perceiving them as contrary to God's will. There was a belief that participating in vaccination was inappropriate and went against divine intentions. Some individuals were troubled by the idea of injecting animal material, like cowpox, into our bodies, viewing it as a form of pollution. In Europe, fears even arose that taking the vaccine could somehow transform people into cows, an idea that painters and artists satirized by depicting human figures with bovine characteristics. Opposition to vaccination extended to inoculators, who saw it as a threat to their business. As the effectiveness of vaccinations became clear, governments stepped in and started mandating their use. In 1979, the World Health Organization declared that smallpox had been completely eradicated worldwide. Since then, no cases of smallpox have been reported anywhere in the world. If you were born after 1980, you aren't required to receive the smallpox vaccine because the virus no longer exists. It's remarkable to think that Dr. Jenner's small discovery had such a monumental impact on the world. The existence of this vaccine and the successful eradication of the disease are estimated to save 5 million lives each year. Surprisingly, we still don't have a cure for this disease, but we don't need one because we have successfully eliminated it through vaccinations. There are only 2 samples of the smallpox virus in the world, and they are stored in highly secure laboratories. One is located in a U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention lab, and the other is in a Russian State Research Center of Virology and Biotechnology facility. These samples are carefully preserved for future research. However, there is ongoing concern about the potential for genetic engineering of the virus, and there is always a risk that accidental leakage from the laboratories could lead to another tragic outbreak. And there you have it, the fascinating exploration of the Red Plague mystery on a quick note. If you enjoyed unraveling this historical puzzle with us, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest investigations. Until next time, this is a quick note signing off. Stay curious.